Buongiorno. Mark my words, Mel. Early by Christmas.
Even now, less than a score of years after the World War,
Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at the fact.
we shall never surrender!
This is the Militaria Podcast, brought to you by your friends at Queen City Militaria, Wehrmacht-Militaria, and SMG War-Relics.
Welcome to the third episode of the Militaria Podcast. I am Joshua Doda. I run Queen City Militaria, and I'm joined by my friends Billy Kramer of Wehrmacht-Militaria.
That's me.
And Dante Gambino of SMG War-Relics.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing?
And we're coming at it. We got another show this week, and we got somebody pretty cool to talk to. But before we get to the interview, guys, how you doing?
Well, I'll start it off as per usual. I've been having a busy week, man. The summer's in full gear for me. Much to the dismay of my my website followers, because I just haven't been putting a lot of material up lately because I've been too busy going to the pool, getting my drink on, and working on the Trans Am, getting her ready to go for the springtime.
You have great color, by the way. We can tell you're getting some sun.
I am getting color. Thank you very much for noticing, Billy. I've been trying to get out there. No SPF for me yet. I'm a little pale. I'm mostly Polish. So, don't let the name fool you. I'm trying to get some color here for sure.
Blessing,
what about
brother.
you, Billy?
That's a blessing.
Well, I almost lost a finger today as I cut myself on a gravity knife, and it was pretty traumatic. But I think after one drop of blood, I'm going to make it. But
yeah,
me.
How exactly do you cut yourself? You're cleaning the blade and just going back and forth like an idiot?
I got this gravity knife and it was covered in cosmoline. So, I put a little run wax on it and, like an idiot, I forgot a knife is a knife. And I was like, oh, are you serious? And the rest is history. And I put a big crybaby message on Facebook and
I saw that crybaby message.
I'm going to make it though. Everything's going to be okay.
It's easy to cut yourself. You forget all the time because you're handling daggers and stuff. There's not necessarily a sharp edge.
Old knives are still knives, even though, they still have a blade and they're still sharp.
Our guest today is the author of several reference books. He's a significant member of the Wehrmacht Awards Forum team, and he's also a collector, Mr. Thomas Durante.
That's right. Hi, guys. Great to be here.
Hey.
I appreciate it.
Hey, what's going on, Tom?
First of all, thank you for being on the show. I know you're a busy guy. I know you have a lot of projects that you've been working on and also, just a ton of experience in the hobby. So I guess, starting off, something that we've been talking about today in our personal group chat is sort of the importance of forums and how forums are a very valuable tool to the collector and to dealers in the hobby. You arguably run the
biggest and best.
Predominant. Yeah, the best forum that there is for collecting German military and other military as well. Could you speak a little bit to just the topic of forums being, this crucial knowledge base?
Sure. Yeah. Wehrmacht Awards is probably one of the oldest forums out there. I didn't start it, but Seba started it back in 1999, I believe, right when the internet was coming around, and it was a good time. He just got in at the ground floor, which helps keep Wehrmacht Awards, probably the best forum out there for our hobby. Before then, it was hard to share information with collectors from around the world. So that's really where the forums kind of came in and are so important, is you can share your knowledge with collectors from all over the world, which has been great for our hobby. Before it was just your local guys or your local dealers that you would talk to. But, starting around 2000, you can share with everyone else, everybody's shared experience. And that's where I think the forums were great and a really big boon for our hobby, information wise.
Absolutely. And it's and one of the things that I think we talked a little bit about earlier, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, is also that, there's just a more concentrated amount of reliable knowledge on the forums.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, just because it's out there and it stands the test of time. If it's not accurate information, you'll get a bunch of collectors that'll come in and based on, what their experience is, they'll challenge it. And then you have good discussions about it. So, it kind of waters out the bad stuff and filters it. And that's why, the forums are a reference for our hobby too. You know, WAF's been around for 25 years, so there's a lot of discussion forums on there, and that's why it's so crucial. It's probably the best resource in our hobby. You know,
For
books
archive
are great,
purposes.
but you know, you can do a search. You know, like I said, we've been around 25 years, so you can just simply do a search for whatever you're looking at and find countless threads going over decades. You know, of just really good, useful information.
It's a valuable resource. And one of the things that we talked about a little bit earlier when we were throwing ideas around, and I'd like to know your opinion on it, is there are a lot of people that only engage with the hobby through social media because forums have sort of fallen out of favor based probably strictly on ease of use.
Yeah, platform wise.
Right.
Not knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not knowledge. And so have you noticed an impact to the forum community, or do you have experiences with sort of just watching the circus that is Facebook and having also that experience from running the forum being like, okay, well, you know what we have over here?
Yeah, I think they can complement each other. You know, the forums have been around for 25 years, you know, before Facebook and everything. So they have that knowledge base there. You know, and it's certainly an older crowd because of that. You know, Facebook and more of the social media has more of a younger crowd. And it's more of it's just kind of hit and miss. You get lots of opinions, probably more so than you with a forum. There's definitely a lot more eyes on social media, which is good. You know, I mean, you need younger collectors in the hobby, so that's where Facebook is good. There's a lot more people on there, but the information is definitely not as reliable as the forums, I would say. There's good information out there, but there's a lot of crap information too. So it's hard to, you know, especially if you're a new collector, it's hard to kind of pick and choose and know what you're dealing with. You know, you post something on Facebook and you'll get 10 opinions out there, and who knows what's good or not, you know? It's just, that's where I think Facebook is kind of lacking, is and you post something on Facebook and like you look back for it like an hour later and you can't find it. You know,
right?
That's part of the issue too. If you're trying to do research, it just disappears under new threads and new posts.
Well, not only that, but a lot of the groups on Facebook got shut down too. You know, we tried to do something in that general direction of let's make it more serious, but all that, a lot of it got taken down. So now it's in a way, it's a complete shit show of information. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean,
5 years ago, there was a lot more Facebook groups. You know, like I mean, 90% of them probably got shut down, which that affects it. You build up a good following of good, reliable guys and admins and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden it gets shut down. Like the next day, it's gone.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know that happened to me and Billy multiple times, and I just kind of gave up and was off Facebook for like four years and just gave up. But the importance of the forums for me as a dealer and as a serious collector as well, the information is always there. You know, on the WAF, Wehrmacht Awards forums, you know where to go, and the information is going to be in there. The search functions are relatively easy and straightforward. So if you search, you want to search Crim Shields, whatever, you just type in Crim Shield and boom, and you've got, you know, pages and pages of stuff that you can go through and start to really get down and dirty into the information. The one thing I wanted to ask you, Tom, about is for a while there, we were having a problem on WAF with people hosting photos off of WAF, and it was causing a problem where the links, where the threads became really difficult to use, almost useless, because people are like, oh, look at this pin back, look at the way this R is slanted or whatever, and whatever badge it was, but there's no pictures there because the photo host, the pictures are gone. So how did you guys really get people away from doing that?
Right. So I think we restricted photo bucket and stuff like that, where the pictures would disappear after a while. We made it so you would have to upload the pictures physically to the forum, which helped keep the threads relevant, you know. And then we spent a couple months going through old threads and deleting them that had no pictures on there.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know too, because I was like, I see a lot less of those kind of threads that are like, oh shit, I finally found something that like is specifically what I'm talking about, and the pictures are useless because they're not there. I don't see as many of those anymore. which is
It-
fantastic.
Right. It's frustrating for sure, especially when you look at back some older threads and you find something, like you said, exactly what you're looking for, but there's no pictures.
Yep.
You can notice if you do a search, you'll find like maybe 10 pages of threads, and you'll see a difference from like, starting around '08 and earlier, there's probably not a lot of pictures attached. So, but nowadays we've fixed it, so you have to attach the pictures, and that's been helpful.
How
Nice.
big, if I may ask, is the operation behind the forum? Because that seems like a ton of work to go comb through all these old threads and try to get rid of the dead links to images and stuff. That's just, I would never have thought that forum mods and managers were doing that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've got a great group of guys. It's owned by one person, Saba. Dietrich Meritz and I are admins of it, which help, kind of run the day-to-day operation of it. But then we have a ton of moderators and super moderators that go in there and actively, like they kind of watch threads and make sure that everyone's being civil. But then, especially Lenny on the forum, Lenny W, he will go in and he's really taken it upon himself, and just spent hours cleaning up old threads, and especially looking at the East Stand, which is where we sell a lot of the collectors can sell things on there. He cleans that up literally on a daily basis, which helps keep, anything that's sold, get it off the page. So it gives, everybody that, still needs to sell something, keeps them on that first page, which is so important.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
we've got
That's a
great
huge
minds.
amount of effort.
And these guys, Tom, I mean, this is all labor of love, right? I mean, we're not giving these guys a 6-figure salary to do this kind of stuff, right?
A 0-figure salary. Everyone
exactly.
is volunteer. And it's really, a lot of them, I mean, they just donate hours and hours of their time, and we're just thankful for them. They just do a great job, and it's really for the love of the hobby. A lot of these guys have been in here since, for 25 years. They've been members for 20 and 25 years. So
Yeah,
they love
I
it.
mean, I love when I go on there and see mods that are active and participating and really helping, keep the peace and keep everything level headed. So, thanks to all your mods. They all do a great job, and they're a big reason for the success of the WAF, in my opinion. So shout out to all those guys.
I agree 100%. I mean, I think, it's nice when you post something on there and you're looking for something and you see a consistent moderator, will answer your question and within a couple hours. That's one of the nice things about forums, that you sort of miss on Facebook, I think.
Bill?
So I think it's $35 a year for somebody to join in and become an association member and participate. I think that's such a reasonable fee. I mean, I know myself, the amount of times I've saved myself $35 by asking the opinion of true experts who are present there, it's exponential. I can't even imagine how many times that has paid for itself over and over and over again. I mean, I think it's $35 a year now, right?
Correct. Right. $35 a year. And in my opinion, it's the best money you can spend in our hobby. We've got a lot of good databases, especially for combat and qualification badges, which is what I collect specifically. There's good databases there of Luftwaffe badges and all that stuff. So just that $35 will get you access to a lot of good databases of original badges, of fake badges. But it also shows other collectors that you're serious about the hobby. If you're an association member and asking questions, I think you're taken more seriously than just some random guy that comes in and is just a regular member. It's free to post pictures and you can be a member of WAF, and we answer those kinds of questions all the time too. But being an association member just, I think, shows you take the hobby seriously.
And you had made mention, I think the credit card system needs to be updated for that fee, but you do take PayPal, and I think you're trying to get Venmo up and running too. I know there was some technical issues, but it is going to be worked out, right?
Right. Yeah. We upgraded the system about 4 years ago. And we made a lot of tweaks and upgrades there. It's just an old platform, but we've got a lot of older guys on the forum that have been used to it, and they don't like change. So they want to see the forum. They don't want, it's hard to make a lot of big changes right off the bat. So, we're slowly making changes and implementing other things, but we still have to work with the basic framework of the V Bulletin forum, which is what you see when you get on WAF. It's an older system, but so it's more familiar to people, which is helpful to a majority of our membership. So we have to work within those constraints, and that's why sometimes it takes longer for the credit card thing to get fixed. You're right, it is currently down, but we do take PayPal, and they are currently working on the credit card fix right now and some other upgrades behind the scenes. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks that'll all be resolved.
I think that over the years, not only has the information and knowledge base increased on WAF, but I think the politics have gotten a little better over the years too. I know for a while, there was a lot of offshoot forums, GCA and War-Relics.eu. Those were, kind of they started after WAF, and I think in a lot of ways they have great membership too. But I think you've done a great job, since I know you're helping Siba, who's a Bears fan, by the way. He's a Chicago Bears fan. That should be stated. I think it's cool that you're helping him, and I think it's become better over the years. And I mean, you've done a great job with it. It's still my go-to. It's my home base. I think it was 2000 I joined, and it's somewhere I myself have gone for 24, 25 years. So I'm glad it's still around. It's such an important resource in the hobby.
Yeah, we appreciate you saying that. Yeah, we think so too. And I know Dietrich and I mean, that's kind of why we wanted to become admins and help out Sabas, because we want to keep WAF going. And we know it's such an important resource for the hobby. And yeah, I mean, WAF's my home for sure. But, I still go on GCA. It's a great forum. I do look at War-Relics every now and then. There's a couple of German forums I get on. I mean, it's very helpful, at least just to research, forums. I think and maybe it's because I'm an older guy, but I can research better on the forums than I can on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that.
Well, and speaking to the usefulness again of research on the forums, there's so many things that I might need to do some research on, one or two badges that come in a lot. You buy something at auction. I'm not necessarily going to go buy an entire reference book around that if it's just one or two offshoot items that I may have, right? And certainly there are reference books that are dedicated to fields of collecting, but when it comes to something that might be like an offshoot, like a little enamel badge or something like that, these forums are such a great resource to be like, I do need this information, but this isn't the kind of thing that I can, invest reference book prices into.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's a good point. If you're, as a dealer, you're not going to buy every book for every badge out there. Especially if you just run into one or two infantry assault badges here and there, it doesn't make sense to buy a whole book on the subject. But from my point as a collector of these things, like I love these specialized books. I will pick up anything that shows a hinge or a pin or a catch, a close up, categorized by maker. Like I have the party pin book. I don't collect, party pin badges at all, but I like that Joe Rivet book because it's very helpful, with all the different makers and what kind of hardware they used, and you can cross-reference it for other badges,
Correct.
So it's, as a collector, it's a big help, these collector books.
You've written the Fallschirmjäger book, okay, and you show traits of a Junker, you show rivets, you show the copper seat, shaped catch, and everything. That applies to the ROAG. I mean, everything. It's a cross-board thing. So as much as you're saying, you don't necessarily need the reference book on that specific badge, it does point out maker traits that are across the board on all of their products. So it's a quintessential reference book. Even if it's only one, it does show you other things that maker was doing at the time. Okay, Tom, what first off, I think I see some wound badges on your wall. Is that correct?
I've got a couple. Yep.
A couple. I think I put a couple of those on your wall.
I think I put a couple on that wall too. I think.
What are you currently working on then? What is your? Yeah, that's impressive. Wow, that's a lot of wound badges, bud. That's a lot of people getting shot during World War II. You got to remember what you got to remember sometimes what this stuff actually is. I mean, the Fallschirmjäger, badge that you did the book for that. People had to jump out of a perfectly good working plane to get that and qualify for that badge. A wound badge is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, it's affordable too. A black wound badge is like under $100, and somebody got shot during World War II to get that badge. So you got to remember the history behind a lot of this stuff too. So you're working on a wound badge book, correct?
For sure. Yep. That's what I'm currently working on. And I just kind of got into wound badges a couple years ago. And they're really fun to collect just because there's so many variations. And like you said, they're pretty cheap, relatively cheap. You can get a black one for 30 or 40 bucks, so it's really fun. It's hard to get burned on them, so if you pick them up and you find one that looks a little interesting and you haven't seen that hinge or catch before, it's easy to just snap them up and then do some studying of them. So and there's so many variations. And as a combat and qualification badge collector, I love it. They're right up my alley. So that's why I love them. I'm getting close to 500 of them now in the collection.
Wow.
Oh my God.
That's very impressive.
And I'm still missing tons of variations. So that's what makes them fun.
So Tom, as an author getting into this genre of badges, how do you know what you're missing? What's the reference material before what you're working on to even give you some insight into this?
Yeah, well, so the forums again are a good reference for that. Like you can just do a simple search on WAF if you're starting to get into wound badges, like how many makers of wound badges are there. You can do that simple search and you'll find threads where they show all the known makers, the ones that were official by the PKZ, but then you also have other ones too, in these same threads where they just found marked packets, so those could be there too. So without a good reference book, though, we don't really know. So it's an ongoing research for me. There's really no good wound badge book out there on the market. And that's why I find it's a good hole to fill. That's why I'm working on it. But it's a huge project. There's so many makers. There's probably 50 plus makers of it. Most of them made black, silver, and gold wound badges. So there's just tons of variations out there. A lot of period documents survived. So kind of going through that too. They're all in German, so it's hard to kind of go through all that stuff. So it's a big project, but I think it's a worthwhile one. And I think like I said, it's a big hole in the hobby, in our collecting hobby that needs to be filled.
Hey, Tom, I have a question for you regarding the transition of reference material, where we went from kind of just a picture book type of reference where it's like, well, here's a wound badge, here's a gold one, here's a black one, here's a silver one, and there might be a few different makers of whatever badge we're talking about, into the more, all right, here's one book on one type of badge, and here's all the makers that we know about, here's all the variants that we know about. Who was the first one to like really throw that type of reference material out there, and when did it happen? I was thinking it was like maybe in like early 2000s or early, what's your take on that?
That's about right. I still have reference books that were like hand drawn. Like this is what the
yeah.
I think Jamie put a book out that was like a close combat class, which was like it was hand drawn with a pencil. It's like this is the shape it should be,
And those books, Tom, they sell now as collector books. Like they're their own type of thing to collect now because they're so outdated you can't really use them, but people want them anyway to say, well, I have that book from 1975.
Well, yeah, for sure. They're outdated in one way, but then they're also like, if you're writing a book on the subject, you want everything that was ever written on that subject, so anything that shows a close combat class, I picked up. So, but you're right. Around 2005 or so, I think, what was his name? Michael Tucker put that big book out, the Combat Badges of the Third Reich, I think. That was the first one where it was a big size. It was probably, 8.5 by 11 or maybe even bigger. And it showed really big close-up pictures of each badge and many of the makers, and that was really the impetus for Frank Hukemes to write his General Assault Badge book. So he looked at Tucker and saw what he did. Tucker's books were good picture books, but there wasn't a lot of like background information. It was just like pretty pictures of several badges, several observer badges, or several infantry assault badges, but not every maker. Frank Hukemes took that one step further, and he wrote the General Assault Badge book, which covered every maker of the General Assault Badge. And that was really probably the first book of all these other collector books that came after it. Mine, Close Combat Class, Dietrich Meritz's, Knight's Cross book, then the Panzer Assault Badge by Philip de Bach, and EK1 books, EK2s. Now all the books are trying to specify every maker of that badge, which is a book in its own, and I think that's part of how far our knowledge has increased, nowadays, whereas 25 years ago, yeah, you had a bunch of marked badges, but you didn't know the unmarked ones were who knows how many variations there. Now with the forums, you studied them and you saw like, okay, all these unmarked ones could be usually tied to makers, and that allowed you to have one huge book for one badge.
What are the reference materials that you've put out, and what was the time frame for those reference materials?
Sure. Yeah, I did the Close Combat Class book in 2007. And then I wrote the Paratrooper badge book, which is the Army and Luftwaffe badges. That came out in 2011. And then I redid the Close Combat Class book in 2018. And that's what I'm currently still selling, that book. And then I'm currently working on my wound badge book right now.
Nice. So we'll have three from you, unique references plus the revisions. How often do you see revisions needing to come out onto the market? Is it just based on like the stuff you're picking up in forums and be like, oh, there's like 12 new makers we didn't know about, it's time to put out a revision, or what do you do then?
Yeah, and that's the negative of a book. The minute you publish it, it's like outdated. It's sort of outdated. You're getting new information. And that's the challenge of authors like me who are trying to do a good book that is complete with every maker, every variation. So, as I'm writing the wound badge book, a new variant will pop up on the forum or on Facebook, and I have to rewrite the Doimer chapter because I saw a new variant pop up, that I've never seen before and no one's ever seen before. So that's the challenge. And it's hard, because we haven't seen everything, but that's what makes this hobby exciting, is that new things do pop up from time to time. And that's where these reference books are so important is, if a new badge pops up and, it's got a hinge and a catch on it that you hadn't seen before on a wound badge, but you can reference the, EK1 book or the Close Combat Class book and look at Doimer and look at Doimer EK1s or Doimer KVKs, and you can find the same hinge and catch on there, then it helps legitimize that new variant that might pop up. So yeah, I mean, that's always the challenge for that. And when I'm writing a book, I'm trying to make it complete. I don't want to have to do a revision to it. I did a revision to the Close Combat Class book just because I learned a lot writing the first book, and I learned how to research a lot. I made a lot of contacts with my first book. So a lot of stuff was sent to me after the book, my first Close Combat Class book came out. So there's so much information that came out, it made me do a second volume. Not so much with the Army and Luftwaffe Paratrooper badge book. That's still a relatively complete book. There might be 3 or 4 variants that have popped up since then that I need to add, but not enough to rewrite the book, in my opinion. It's a 600-page book.
Sorry to interrupt you, Tom. Can we talk about the Close Combat Class book here for a second? Because Billy was telling us earlier that it seems like he might have a couple pieces that made it into the book.
Billy does have a few pieces in there. He's got a few pieces that are going to be in the wound badge book too.
So these are my Steinhauer und Luke. These are my favorite clasps of all time. I have 2, not just 1. Tom, real quick, what's your favorite CCC maker, and you cannot ever change it right now? What is it? Just tell us what it is. The blue black.
Steinhauer and Luke.
There you go.
I think I have some more detailed photos here for you, Bill, if you'd like to speak on these.
Look, they're screamers. I mean, both of them, the bronze finish, a lot of times, the zinc does evaporate the finish over the years, but if you get a good one and you keep it right and you store it correctly, it's pristine and it will always look like that. And for me, that's just a top tier piece. I love the Eagle. And again, I was very honored to have that badge in the book. Thank you, Tom.
And then this one as well, or is this?
Yeah, this is just a variant hardware example, Steinhauer Luke, and it's still very nice. I like the other one just a little bit better, but I'm allowed to. It's like, you know what I mean? It's my badge. I can do whatever I want. I like the other one better, but that one's still great.
They're both great pieces.
Yes.
So how long?
they kind of have a bad reputation because they made a lot of stuff post-war, but they made a lot of stuff wartime too. They were a very important maker, PKZ number 4, they were the, top 10 makers. And they just made a great looking badge across the board. Their Panzer assault badges are awesome. Their infantry assault badges are awesome looking. Their Knights Crosses are beautiful. Their Type A's are just gorgeous. They did a great job.
That's my favorite Knights Cross is the Type A. I love that white powdery finish that they have. It's unlike, I mean, don't get me wrong, Junkers, they all have their own beautiful appeal, but for me, that Type A Micro 800, that's where it's at, baby.
So,
Junker gets all the publicity, but Steiner and Luck quality beats them, blows them out of the water.
Yeah.
Tom, we were talking about revisions and things like that, and how much work has to go into just compiling this information to begin with. When it comes to the close combat class book, how long did that take you from start to finish? From the beginning of the project to having the book in your hand?
The first book, 2007, I started in 2005, so it was a 2-year process.
Wow.
Yeah. And it just and I'd been collecting them for 6 or 7 years before then. I started collecting around 98 or so. So but when I first saw the close combat class, I just fell in love with that badge. It just looks great. Knowing the history of it, what you had to do to get just the bronze, 15 days of close combat, it's just amazing. It's an amazing badge, and it just looks great. It's such an excellent design. And so I just fell in love with it. And but 2 years of hardcore research and writing the book.
Is that a daily effort?
For sure. Yeah. Probably about 2 hours a day at night. I put the kids to bed, put the wife to bed, and I'd go work for 2 hours.
Man. And so you said that you would self-publish these, right?
Well, the first one I needed help with because I didn't know anything about publishing. I wrote the book in Word and just wrote it, got all the pictures together and all that stuff, but I had no idea about publishing. So I went with some Belgian friends of mine helped me publish it. So we kind of partnered in and published it. The Army, so I learned a lot then, and I realized that it wasn't too difficult to do it. So, I bought the Adobe Photoshop program and all that stuff. So the Army and Luftwaffe Paratrooper badge book, I kind of did a lot of the layout myself, but I also, I had somebody helping me with the layout, but I did self-publish that one. And then close combat class book, the second one, I did 100% myself. Dealt with the publisher in Canada and all that stuff. And, that's as an author, that's the best way to maximize your kind of profits, if there is much, if you're doing it yourself.
I was really curious about how you found the self-publishing process, or just really a lot of times when you deal with tools for authors and people that are trying to break into writing, ebooks, things like that are very accessible, but it doesn't really work for reference books. It doesn't really lend itself to our hobby. So you do have to have that sort of jack of all trades approach and use InDesign and Photoshop and that there's such a curve to it. I imagine.
For sure, there is. It's not as hard as you think though. Like you just get on YouTube and watch a couple of videos, and like within a weekend, I had kind of figured out the basics of Adobe InDesign and Photoshop. And Dietrich helped me a lot too. Dietrich Maritz, he wrote the Knights Cross books. He was very helpful too, and Seb Talbot helped me a lot too. He wrote the Luftwaffe pilot badge book and pilot observer badge book that came out a couple years ago. He was helpful with the Photoshop stuff. InDesign's pretty easy, but the Photoshop stuff, how to cut backgrounds out and stuff like that, I think he has some family members that do that for a living. So he was very helpful in that, which is great. So, getting to know people through the forum was helpful, kind of sharing knowledge, and again, very helpful. Thankful to those guys.
Have you found that it's a very small community of authors for these types of reference books, or is there ever, just some completely out of left field author and publication that comes out and you're like, I can't believe I've never met this guy, or is it people that you tend to be familiar with?
Yeah, most of most of the people I'm familiar with that write a book just because they're on the forums. So you deal with them like on a daily basis or whatever. So you sort of get to know them through the forums, and then you understand they're writing a book. So very few that have popped up that I'm like, I've never heard of that person at all. Maybe some German authors or whatever, but even the German guys like Frank Fader wrote a good EK1 book. But yeah, he was on the GCA forum for years and shared a lot of research there too. So, a lot of times it's not just an author doing it, behind the scenes. It's a community effort showing all different variations. And, you look at the front pages of our books, and we have like a whole page of contributors to the book. You can't just write it yourself. There's collectors from all over the world that share their knowledge freely, which is really, it's one of the best things about being an author and writing one of these books, is just seeing how generous people are with their time. And I'm thankful to the guys. They would mail me thousands and thousands of dollars worth of badges, just out of the blue, barely only know me through the forum. And just like, yeah, I'll mail you some of these rare badges that I have, and photograph them and scan them and measure them and mail them back to me when you're done.
Wow. Yeah, that really, it speaks to the importance of community quite a bit.
For sure. We couldn't do it without the community.
To Tom's point, you want to, if you're going to put that kind of work in, you want to make it as good as it possibly can be, as up to date as it possibly can be, and as useful as it possibly can be, because there's great references out there, material that's very difficult to use. I found they're either not organized by maker, or they're not alphabetical, or you're just like, what is this? The pictures are great, the information is great, but it's going to take me an hour to find the thing I'm looking for. And Tom, all of your works are fine with that. They're very easy to use. But some of these guys, I'm just like, I don't know what they were thinking when they put these books together. Any insight into that?
Yeah, it's a big challenge, and it's one that I'm currently going through right now with the Wound Badge book. It's just so many makers. There's probably 50 something makers of that. So, I'm categorizing it by PKZ number, but if I do that, like a PKZ number 5, how do you know if you have a wound badge that's unmarked in your hand, how do you know to look at PKZ 5? Right.
And I've seen a lot of authors, they'll put like cheat sheets in the back of the book and say, hey, this is what if the head of your eagle looks like this, it's probably an SNL or whatever. And then you could skip to this page. And that I find very useful as well.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. And I feel like I'm trying to do it the opposite of that. Put the quick references in the front of the book this time. So if you have an unmarked wound badge and you're looking at it, what are the points here that could point me in the right direction? Does the back of the helmet have a rivet on it? Does it have this type of hinge or catch on it? Like that kind of stuff will narrow it down quickly if it's unmarked. So I feel like that's kind of the direction I'm doing with the Wound Badge book.
Nice.
Well, Dante, I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but I actually do have a picture for you as well of you and Tom. So it's not all Billy show and tell today. But both of you guys, I don't
know if Tom remembers this. We'll see. Oh, there it is. I don't even know what. I don't even know. Tom, you look really young there, buddy. I'm not gonna lie. I look young too. What? This has got to be like 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah, probably. It was probably 19. So yeah, 5 years.
Wow, look at that.
Look at you guys.
Two strapping young men right there.
Two young bucks at the Militaria show.
That's the SOS.
But that's the SOS. You could tell by the lighting, right? And but that's the service you get from Durante is you can get a book right there, and he's going to hook you up, and he'll sign it for you. He's going to take care of his customers for sure.
Actually, in our show photos from today, I have a dedication.
There you go.
There you go.
Mine's signed too.
Billy.
Of course, mine's not as nice. Mine's like, thanks for buying the book, schmuck. And that was it. Like, I don't even know what happened to this. I like the signature. It's cool.
Thanks for buying the book, schmuck.
I'm just kidding, obviously.
You'll get in the Wound Badge book. He already said he's got wound.
No,
he recorded it.
No. I sold him a bunch of wound. So here's the difference. So Tom's doing a book, right? he bought badges for me for sure. And if they make it in the book or they don't, they're no longer mine. So
Yeah, but you helped.
They're not from the collection of Dante Gambino and SMG War Relics. They are Thomas Durante's collection.
I'm leaving my name off if I show it in the book, I'm not having my name next to it. But it's interestingly enough, after the first episode of this Militaria podcast, I went to SMG War Relics and I found a wound badge that is a rare variant on your site. And I bought it.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, that came through, and I told myself, I think I even told you guys, I was like, Durante just bought a wound badge for me. I guaranteed he needs it for the book. And sure as shit, there you go.
Good price, and it's probably one of the rare silver badges out there.
Nice.
Tom, I have a couple I'd like to show you here. I have a funny story. The Fallschirmjäger, the Luft badge I have. In 1999, when I first started with WAF, I saw that Clover logo on a BSW, and I was like, you know what? I think that's the one. And here she is. That's perfect. And I think that's my favorite maker. You know, I love it. Again, 1999, I made a bucket list, and I had to have the BSW with the Clover logo. I love the question mark catch. You know, you describe all that in your book. It's a quintessential reference, in my opinion. And look at how beautiful that badge is. That's my favorite Luft personally. And that's Mark Mitchell, a good friend of mine in England, was able to get me that badge, and it found its forever home.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It's a great badge. I mean, yeah, BSW, you don't hear much about them as a Luftwaffe paratrooper badge, but, you know, sitting next to a Junker, you know, that BSW is much higher quality. You know, the early Junker stuff are good, but BSW's just up there. They're really nice.
I also like the fact that it's, you know, Viennese, you know, it's an Austrian badge, you know, and that's kind of a cool offshoot of German badges in its own right, because it was, in theory, foreign to an extent.
Right. Yeah. Beauty.
Bill, did I have? Yeah. Do you need that, Tom?
What is that? An SNL?
No, that's a Bramer.
Oh yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, maybe I'll help you write the fucking book. Jesus Christ!
Wow! Harsh words from William Kramer.
Man.
You have another one here, Bill?
Yeah, this one makes Tom drool. I know.
Oh God, that is awesome. Oh Jesus!
Look, what's so cool about, not only does it have the talon, and it's an aluminum, but look at the repair at the bottom. Josh, can you show the back of that bad boy? Look at that catch. Oh man.
Oh wow, they use a like plate metal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And look at it from the front again. It's incredible. It's so perfect to the badge. It's gorgeous. Now that is a badge, and I love this badge. I showed it to Tom, and he's like, "I'm in love with it." And I said, "You can't have it. I'm keeping it."
And that's a repair, Billy. I would take that repair all day. All day, I would love that. Yeah.
But you know, at the same time, somebody really loved this badge back in the day and took it and got it professionally repaired. You know, I mean, again, you got to remember what these men did to get that badge. That's insane. You know,
that's really nicely fitted.
Yeah. So
yeah, beauty.
That's my drool piece for Tom.
Extended talon, man. You can't beat them.
Yeah, that's a rare badge.
Seems like a topic that you might be interested in for your first book there, Bill.
Yeah, the extended time book.
So just a recap, we were here graced with the presence of reference book author, forum celebrity, Thomas Durante. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. I enjoyed it, and it was definitely good talking. And I'm honored to be on your podcast. It's great.
And we will provide some links for places where you can buy some of Tom's work, and also for the forum, of course, in the comments of this, in the description of this video on YouTube, and it'll be in the Spotify description as well, and all the podcast stuff. So, you know, boys, do you have any closing wisdom that you'd like to give listeners before we get out of here?
The closing wisdom is use the forums, support the forums, and appreciate the forums. That's it, man. Get your asses to the WAF. Go do it. Check it out. If you haven't been, get there.
I'm in agreement with everything he said. I like Dante. Again, the complexion is great. You're doing a good job. And this was
That's how you
fun
look
and-
healthy.
and-
You've been getting some
Also-
sun.
Thanks.
I
I
went
just need
with
to
the
drop a
Sox.
few LBs and I'll be good to go.
I went with the Sox Cup for the record. I'm a traitor to the Cubs fans. I apologize, guys, but this was fun. Tom, sorry this was a scheduling nightmare. I'm so fucking glad this is over with.
Yeah,
Thanks,
for
Tom.
the
Appreciate
for
everything.
viewers and listeners, we are recording this pretty late, so even more of a thank you to Tom for joining us and making time in his busy schedule to be on the show. And that is episode 3. I am Josh Doda. Again, I run QueenCityMilitaria.com. Billy Kramer.
I'm Wehrmacht-Militaria.com of the you can see it. I'm that guy.
And Dante Gambino.
Hey, war-relics.com.
Awesome. Thank you again, Tom. We'll talk to you soon. Maybe we can have you back on when the book's out.